What happens after somebody dies? So what do you do? What do you not do? What's the sequence and the steps that you need to take and the order that you need to take those in? I mean, this is the stuff that nobody talks about, but that's the reason I'm doing this video, guys. I want to make sure that you're avoiding the pitfalls that are costly. So give me a thumbs up if you're good with that. So I've got a pretty solid list here I want to go through. So no matter where you live in the United States, 50 states require you to go through a probate process. Now, a lot of people think, oh, I got to get an attorney for this. Now, you do not have to get an attorney for this, because I'm going to tell you something. Attorneys want three things, and all of them have to do with this. Number one, they're going to charge you by the hour, right? Their hourly rate. Or they're going to charge you a flat rate. Here's how much I'm going to do to settle this estate. Or three, they're going to charge you a percentage of the estate. And I know some people who have paid, and it's about 10% of the estate. And that's the estate money for distribution, right? So think about this before you get going. So what happens to somebody when they actually die? So there's the funeral, obviously, or the preparation for them. And then there's the obituary, and you want to make sure that you want to put a little bit of information in the obituary, because there's a bunch of scammers out there that jump on this kind of stuff, and I'm going to go into detail on that in a minute. And then the third thing is the death certificates. Now, you're going to need multiple death certificates from the deceased, because credit cards, closing accounts out, IRAs, things like that, they're going to want originals. So you can't make photocopies of that kind of stuff. So this is what you need to do. Now, some cases, if the estate is a bigger estate, you got a lot of accounts, a lot of things going on, you might need 24 or more death certificates to work with. If it's a smaller estate, you might need a dozen or just a handful. So it just depends on how big that estate is. But the next process part of it is what I call the document gathering stage. Okay, now what I mean by that is you're going to get a spreadsheet, a piece of paper, a legal pad, whatever it is, and these are the things that you need to put down on there. You need to put down like credit cards. You want to get copies of the marriage certificate. Okay, because again, if it's a spouse, they're going to need these types of things. Any kind of military discharge papers, because if it has to do with government, I'll get into that in a minute. Car titles, bank statements, any kind of accounts, and some accounts you won't maybe find or even know about. That's where this due diligence comes in. Divorce papers. Look, guys, if there was a divorce previously, somebody may be laying claim to that. That may be contestability, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. So prenuptials, if there was any kind of a prenup going on, tax returns, life insurance, they're going to need tax returns. And I'm going to tell you this, I am not an accountant, and I'm not an attorney. I'm a real estate broker, and I have a lot of people who we help out every single week. People live somewhere else, and we help people to settle these estates, whether it's real estate, and they a lot of times don't have a clue on where to start and where to end. That's where I'm giving you my expertise on this and what to do. So give me a thumbs up. I mean, is any of this helpful so far? Okay, so here's the thing. You've got you got the gathering, right? You gather the information. Now it's about the wills and the probate, okay? Now, a lot of times, financial advisors want to get in there. Again, why? Because, but if the person has already deceased, it's already happened. Now it's about the distribution of that, okay? So you may need some help, but you shouldn't be paying for that, because financial planners and all that stuff, they already did that to make that money. So just be aware of what's really going on. Now, there's two things. If you have a will or if you don't have a will. Now here, if you have a will, a valid will, that is, it's testate. That person they died with testate. Intestate means without a will. So you'll go to, like here, we would go to the courthouse and we fill out paperwork, or the beneficiary or the executor of the estate would go to and fill out that paperwork, and they'll bring the death certificate with them, and it'll go through the probate process. The judge needs to work through that. Now, if the person has a will, the deceased has a will, it's a shorter process. Here in our county, it's anywhere from 2 weeks to a month, and it's done. Now, if they died without a will, guys, it could take a year. In some cases, I've heard, I know one case where it's 4 years going on, because there were family members in there fighting. And I'm going to go through some of this as well. So the person who is filing has a will, and you'll need a personal representative. Now, that could be the same person, or it could be another person. If the person who is the executor of the estate, sometimes if it's a small estate, they do both, their personal representative and the executor. Executor is, the taking care of this process. Now here's the thing, guys. When we look at this, if a person had, partnerships and businesses and that sort of thing, there could be a case where you'd need two different people to do this, and that can get into legal. So that part of it would make sense, right? You get an attorney to take care of that portion of it. But you want to make sure that the personal representative is working in the best interest of the estate. So whoever that person is named is working in the best interest. Now look, when we talk about this, what's the process that you really need to distribute the money, okay? Or if you're an executor or personal, okay. If it's a joint account, husband and wife, right? They both have their name on the account. You can access that money right away. It's both people. If it is a beneficiary, so it was a named person in that, when that person passed away and died, it's a beneficiary of that. That goes right away. The last thing, this is the sequence I was telling you about, is that if there is something that was in the deceased name and it's not in, it has to go through the probate process in order to be distributed out. So that's why you need to, joint ownership's fine, beneficiary is fine, but any other kind of designations that have been told, that's fine. Trust distributions. Now there's cases where there's been trusts set up, especially if it's younger kids or kids that are not of age, or even some adults have set up because they don't have a responsible kid. They wait till they're older in life before they get anything. But you have to follow along with whatever that trust says. You can't do things that it doesn't say. So again, that could be where you would want to take a look at the legal action. You can read these things. This is all stuff that you can read when you're looking at the will or any trusts or anything like that. Now, the size of the estate. This is very important. Tax can be assessed to the estate itself because it could be a large estate, right? And then it could also be taxed to the beneficiaries. So depending on how large that estate is and what state in the nation that you live in, it could vary. But the probate distributions, you have to wait for that probate to be settled, whether you have a will, and that gets settled a lot quicker where it can start being distributed, or if it's if you don't have a will, then you're going to have to go through the probate process and wait for that to get settled before you can sell the real estate or all that stuff. And you can see where the confusion here is. A lot of people will say, well, somebody so-and-so died and I'm just going to start selling stuff. You can be in big trouble or not get a full clear title to a car or a house or other things if you don't have that probate. And that can come back to whoever's selling those items. So you need to take that step. Now, bills. Okay, if it was a hospital stay or other issues towards the end of life, you can accumulate a lot of bills. So just you need to take care of those bills out of the estate if there is anything there to take care of that, and go back to that list that I said about, that document gathering. And there's always going to be things that you're going to find that you didn't even think about. So that's why you want to make a long, detailed list of that. And even if you're preparing, I've seen people who have had cancer and they know that they're going to have an earlier life expectancy than what the average person may have, and they've gone through and detailed things even in their house. Like I've had people who have left me things and they actually had my name on the bottom of that thing, or it was designated as for me to get that thing. So it depends on how detailed somebody is. It could have to do with their burial or their how they're going to, what celebration of life they want. They could detail all those types of things, what they want to do, party, whatever the case is. So just, you got to read the will, you got to look at what that deceased would want, and then that would be the way you would act. So the bills, you want to take care of that. So things you want to think about and who you want to notify. Now you want to think about fraternal organizations. Okay, so if they belong to any fraternal organization, the reason I say that is because some of them may have a death benefit. Some may be, a $500 or $1,000 or $10,000, depending upon what organizations that person might have been a member of. So think about this, because that all goes into the estate. Any religious groups that they might have been members of, or alumni associations. You want to give notice to these people. Think about things of where money was stashed. I mean, I got to tell you something. In some cases, we've seen where money was stashed, in cash in the house, but also, a safe deposit box that nobody knew about, or a locker, or even, a storage bin. What's this key go to? Oh my gosh! Well, we got to figure out what that is. It happens. Now, my team, a real estate team, helps people to settle estates in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where the mom and dad retired to the area, but the kids all live somewhere else, so they need some help with that. And we help everything from the trash out to the cleanup and the yard spruce up and making sure everything, if there were any prescription drugs in the house, we make sure that those are disposed of properly, any weapons, any things like that. So there are processes and steps, changing the locks, all those things that need to be taken care of that you really don't think about until you're kind of halfway involved. But these are things that you want to think about, because the theft I want to tell you about, when you have family members involved, there can be battles, and I had mentioned this. Okay, so again, watch out for the scammers. They can be from the inside and they can be from the outside. So we talked about the health insurance. You want to notify your health insurance, that person's health insurance, because again, bills will be rolling in sometimes after the fact. And that doctor came in, was he in there for 5 seconds? Yeah, but you got a bill from him. So those are the things you got to wait for all that to get settled, all the actual real bills to get out before you can really start distributing the money to any kind of a beneficiary, to those accounts. So like if there's debts on mortgages or cars, you got to make those payments. You can't just stop. So you got to make sure that checking is still, you're taking care of that stuff too. Because there will be late fees, penalties, and can even be processed. I mean, if you don't make a mortgage payment, guess what happens? You know what happens. So, these are things that you have to deal with, whether you're the personal representative or the executor of the estate. Now, as I said, with the theft and the obituary, limited information. The reason for that is because, again, people will read things and then they'll act like they knew somebody, or they need a portion of the estate, or something is going on there. So again, that's why if you limit the amount of information to see what's legit and what's not. Did this person have other family members that were never even talked about? You've seen it in, you hear these stories all the time where they had a separate life, and it happens. So this is the reason that they will post into public records out into space to see if anybody lays claim to any liens or any judgments against this person to come about. And that's where basically, the titles, and they do all kinds of things, but you just want to be aware that if you have a will, it's going to be a lot more helpful, an up-to-date will, that is, guys, a lot more helpful than if you have a someone who does not have a will. Okay, so you want to notify the credit bureaus. Why? There's 3 credit bureaus, and you want to let them know that this person is deceased. And here's why, guys, because scammers will jump on and grab a social security number and start putting bills on things and all that kind of stuff. You can go through, this is a helpful tool to find out what accounts are open. Now, you might have accounts that were open 10 years ago for a credit card with a department store or something like that. That stuff needs to be closed. But if somebody gets access to that, that can affect the estate, and then you're fighting that thing. So that's a good helpful tip. Cancel driver's license. Now, a lot of people like to hold on to their driver's license if it was their loved one. But you do have to cancel the driver's license. Any financial companies that they were dealing with, any brokerages, again, you want to get that, because you're going to have to get to that point and distribute those funds. You'll get proceeds for that. They'll go into an account, and again, you distribute from there, from a checking. And the life insurance. Now, life insurance is a interesting subject, whether some people don't even know that there was life policies, and they don't even understand that, but there is contestability between life insurance companies contesting to get that check if there was, they want to know the cause of death. So was there any foul play, or was it suicide? So your policy itself is going to determine what the payout is. And if they have a question about what was going on there, there's a contestability about that, and it can be between family members, even for that matter, or family members that come out of the woodwork. And guys, it happens. I've seen it all. So you got to take a look at that. When someone is, especially if they're out of state, and family members, if they've moved out of state for retirement and that sort of thing, what is it that they wanted, the family member, the deceased, wanted? What did they want to get cremated? Did they want to have a full funeral? Did they want to get buried back home and have to be up there and transport? All that stuff that's going on. So you want to always go to whatever the deceased wanted, okay? But here's the thing. They may have grave plots somewhere or something like that, that a family, where they need to be. these are things that you need to think about and go back to and track down while you're making those moves. And if somebody ever said anything to you, or a friend or a family member, guys, this is the stuff. Is any of this helpful? Again, I'm trying to give you as much information. Again, we've seen it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I want you to avoid those pitfalls that are costly. And that's why I do these videos here on this channel. And I hope you subscribe and you're enjoying them. So let's talk about social media, okay? The Gmails, the Facebook, you've been hacked before and people have sent you all kinds of stuff. You want to get the accounts, you want to secure those and get those shut down, at least give notice. Here's why. Again, there's a ways to get in, and you don't want these scammers to come about and to scam over something like that, especially over somebody who's a loved one, right? Social Security. Okay, so if it's a spouse, you want to go to Social Security and say that the spouse has died. You have a window of time, and I don't know what that window is, but you want to make sure that they know that the spouse is dead, because let's say that you do nothing and then you're getting both benefits from both spouses, and you're going to owe the back because that person died at some point, and you could get penalties on that. So don't let that roll. The thing with Social Security is, let's say one of the spouses was not receiving Social Security for some reason or whatever, younger, and that person may need to actually get a death survivor, a spouse from Social Security Department. So those are things that you need to get in process as well. And I hope some of this is helpful to you. I can't cover it all in one video, but I just want you to know what you should be looking for, the sequences of things to do. Because a lot of times, again, people don't talk about this stuff. Nobody's ever going to die, right? We all are. And whether it's a friend, a family member, real estate, any of the other things that need to get settled, these are things that are process and part of life. So wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I hope you're having a fantastic day. Again, if you enjoy these videos, please put something in the comments and let me know. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.